Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's breakfast somewhere, so eat up. Welcome to Breakfast with Vinny. Food for thought. Take it easy. They love us already. Okay. So today is a very, very special day. I'm very honored to have with me a special guest that really needs no introduction. I saw him when the group Yes was just emerging and sort of at the peak of their original popularity, with King Crimson, with his own band, two versions of his own band, one called Bruford and one called Earthworks. And we're talking about the consummate musician here. Please welcome to the show, the great Bill Bruford.
Mr. Kolayuda, hello. It's great to be on your show.
Thank you, Bill. And Vinny, please, if you will. Thank you. So, man, oh man, oh man, you know, as a musician and as an intellectual, you know, I have the greatest respect for you. And I have to say that I remember seeing you in the original Yes when I was still in high school. And you know, those days were very, very defining moments in my life that not only helped shape me as a musician, but I hold them dear to my heart for various reasons. Wow. Thank you for all of your contributions. I mean, I have to preface this with that. And, you know, you've been involved with a lot of bands, whereas for me, you know, my thing is a little different. I've been kind of like a sideman my whole life. And, you know, I've been in group situations as a sideman, but you've actually been a member of bands. And so I'm just wondering how, you know, the band dynamics, sort of like you've got a lot of different personalities to deal with who are equal partners, you know, and, you know, in the same way, I think that a session player or a sideman has to be a psychologist. You have to be one in that situation as well. But it's almost more like a family or even a gang, you know, as it were.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah. And so how does it ever? How do you deal with those kind of dynamics if it reaches the breaking point and you know, when it's a situation where there may not be a clear leader, but it's more of like a sort of group diplomacy. How do you reach agreements and have a common sort of, you know, focus?
Yeah, tricky, isn't it? Very tricky. I'm a believer in leadership. I think that you can be a very subtle, very backseat leader.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be talking all the time. It's more or less the way you show people things, I think. I was quite a lot older. I tended to be older than the young guys that I hired, young British guys that I hired to play with me. Mm-hmm. They had, generally speaking, more technical and musical competence than I did. I, on the other hand, had a lot of experience and an international platform to give them. So what you have there really is a balance of needs. You know, they need me because I have a platform. I need them because they have a hot young ability these days. And when you have the balance of needs sorted out in a group, I think things will go well.
Well, that's well said. I mean, I've never thought of it in those terms, the balance of needs. It reminds me of how some bands were actually cast, where you might have, let's say if you had 5 people in the band and you had 4 of them that were absolute technical virtuosos and one that wasn't, it would be very, very easy for someone or anyone to just say, oh, why did they hire that slouch? You know, that sort of knee-jerk reaction to passing that kind of judgment. And it's so very, very, very wrong, because that slouch is exactly what is needed to create a balance, you know, and I guess you said it, a balance of needs, but just a sort of like we all have different gifts and
yeah, in the band Yes that you mentioned, there was a wide variety of technical capability.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who led the band would have played all the instruments himself if he knew how to play any of them, and he didn't know how to play any of them. So in a way, the musicians were kind of his orchestra, and he was slightly frustrated that he couldn't, he couldn't actually play everything himself, because I think he probably would have done. So we musicians were sort of providing what we thought was necessary. And within the people holding musical instruments, because the guy at the front with the singer was the man who led the band effectively, the people with the musical instruments in themselves had a wide range of technical capability, right from the Royal College here in the UK, pianist Rick Wakeman, Steve Howe, very good on jazz guitar essentially, and people with more or less musical training. That didn't bother us at all. We assumed that was the raw materials we had to work with, and that's fine. You get the best out of what you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I had any skill as a band leader at all, it was to get the best possible out of a small group of people.
Okay. Yeah. So in that situation, when you're talking about the original Yes, was there a sense of frustration that, the individual members' contributions to what was actually going to be played in the compositions were sort of stunted by this person who wanted to play all the instruments? Do you know what I mean? Or was there a bit of give and take? And I mean, if you
No,
don't mind me asking.
not at all. I don't mind you asking at all. And I think I've painted the picture far too black. I didn't mean to imply there was a sense of controlling quite that
Yeah.
way.
Hmm.
We were all trying to bring a vision alive, but we were from very different backgrounds. That's also a common a point of interest in a way, is that if everybody's from the same street in Detroit, chances are they all know what each other's talking about.
Yeah. Well said.
In our band, we were from all different corners of the earth, and half the time I couldn't understand literally what the singer from up north of England was talking about. I'm from deep south, so England's
Right.
a small place, but even within 100 miles, you can get confusion of language. So we had
Not like Italy.
yeah, and a wide variety of people with a wide variety of talent,
Yep.
and a vague idea of where we're going. And if you're comfortable working in that format, as I am, with a poorly laid out idea of exactly what it is you're trying to create, I'm perfectly okay with that. Some people hate it.
No, I understand. I mean, I've gone through similar things as a session musician. I mean, I remember back in the day when, pardon me for coughing, when it was all still analog tape. I worked for someone once that he actually had me playing one drum at a time, uh, in order to create this drum track. And I thought this is the epitome of control freak stuff. And so, without getting ahead of myself, we could sort of just jump right into present day when you now have many people who are playing multiple instruments and who can do and want to and actually do everything themselves, whether or not it's through playing multiple instruments well or enough to get the song across and then kind of fixing it later, or a combination of that in programming and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's more of that happening. That I want to get into this a little bit with later with you about the what I would call the solitary musician, and so maybe it's just come to fruition now where people have always had that tendency, and now they have the means to do it. Now it's really going to be all bets are off. They're going to go nuts and just sit there and just do the same thing over and over ad infinitum because they can, and it's like a gold mine for these people who are indecisive or who want to be control freaks. Like there was a joke going around for a while where some of us drummers that were doing sessions where like it got to this point where everything was getting corrected, and there would be this standing joke where we would say, okay, we'd be playing and we'd give them 4 bars. We played 4 bars and they would turn around and just say, okay, that's enough. Sucks. Come on in. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter. They're just going to fix it anyway, and just
Yeah.
step all over it and just chop it up and spit it out. Yeah, I
I
mean,
remember it was a terrible time in the studios. I did enough studio work
yeah.
to know that that was not really my place. I wasn't very good under that. I was much better in a less constricted or constrained environment than that. That's not my kind of. I'm not great at operating like that.
You know what? You're a creative person, and that's all good. You know where
Yeah,
you want to thrive and where you do thrive,
yeah,
and it's like feed that, feed the good wolf. Feed,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And of course, what you how you conduct yourself rather depends what you want from music. And there's some basic non-negotiables with me, and one of which is human interaction. So I'd like to play with some other person. I don't really want. I could have a home studio if I wanted to. I could probably make everything on the back of my iPhone in my bedroom, but I don't really want to do that. I'd rather play with another human being in the room, preferably 4 or 5 human beings in the room. Part of the problem there is the cost. There's a very good book out. What's it called? It's called Death of the Artist. Don't know whether you've come across it or not. It's a great book, and this tackles the shortage of money and why we're getting the music we deserve. It's an old adage, you know, that societies get the music they deserve, or another way of putting it, get the music they pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And since music is free now, we're down to one guy in a bedroom kind of producing the music, which he
Yeah.
may or may not like. So I'm of course old school in the sense that I like 2 or 3 people together in a room.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of our default mode as humans. And it's part
Yeah,
of
I think
our
so.
humanity, it really is. And but we have this kind of duality, shall we say, where the other part of us will go, nah, I can do all this myself. You know what I mean? Sometimes there's that attitude
Yeah.
behind it. It's like, well, I don't really need him. I'll save the money. And now on top of it all, with this glut of education available everywhere, because everybody and their uncle has a how-to channel,
Mm.
it's like everybody can kind of play now, at least good enough, if not being overqualified to do most things that they want to get hired for to do sessions. So they say, oh, hey, DM me, I'll do sessions. So the supply is greater than the demand. And what happens when that happens? Of course, economics 101. Yeah, the price goes down. Yeah, well, I'll do it for $5. So you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
values change, economic values and aesthetic values change. And I have to get that book. I'm really glad you mentioned it, Bill. And I too am. I'm going to rephrase that. I, along with many of my contemporaries, um, you know, I'm still in that kind of, why did we have to give it away, and why did they drop the ball? And this is really a big part of our problems. And some people will say, you're a dinosaur, you're a boomer, get with the program, it is what it is, and stop complaining. And I'm like, oh, okay, you mean like just create like 10 streams of income for myself that are all tangential to what I do, because this is what everybody has to do now. Like, I don't have a problem selling t-shirts because I think t-shirts are cool. But if you tell me that I have to do that because I have to give my record away, and not only that, but how do I get the money to make the record? If we
Yeah.
no longer have labels that are the banks funding it,
Mhm.
what do I have to take a loan out? And then what's my return on investment? So, yeah, I get what you're saying about the cost of it. But,
Yeah,
back,
how can any performer on a single dedicated instrument, let's say drums or bass or viola or cello, that might take up to 10,000 hours or more to master, and without the benefit of state or private subsidy, earn a living. It seems to be almost impossible now to do that. So the whole idea of what you and I know as a drummer, a guy who plays an instrument, or a single instrument, more or less the music he wants to play, possibly, um, how can that person survive or learn the instrument enough to survive? So that's very difficult, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, getting together with people, as you were mentioning, we used to just do that. That was just how things were.
Yeah,
When we were kids, we would just go into somebody's basement and oh, he has a van. Great, we can haul our stuff around. And
yeah.
in terms of recording stuff, sometimes it would just be done on an open reel tape machine. Somebody bought one. And nowadays I find that it's interesting that some people are going back and getting this old gear in order to create records that sound lo-fi anyway. They release that stuff, right? But
That's regressive, but it's fascinating.
yeah, it is
Fascinating.
fascinating. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I get that, but anyway, so I think that I mean, obviously social media has a lot to do with the with
Yes.
the
Yeah,
solitary
huge
musician.
amount.
Yeah. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but mine, I mean, I can tell you what mine are, but I'll give you the floor. Take it away, Bill, and I can chime in, but yeah, I just, about
So,
social media and
well, now we're talking brand Bruford and brand Colaiuta and selling ourselves. This is
yeah,
hard. This is all part of what we all have to do these days. And Deresovich, this guy who wrote The Death of the Artist, will talk to you about the attention economy, which is a good expression, I think, the attention economy. So you and I,
what it is.
we're kind of already fighting each other. What are we fighting for? We're fighting for attention of a pair of ears or a pair of eyes. And it's that fight that's so exhausting, I think, for most people. Most artists want to go deep, but they're being dragged to the surface all the time by people who need an interview or they need a little slice of their life. They have to sell their lives, basically, how to keep body and soul alive and still make a living as an artist. And this is before you've become accomplished on your musical instrument. I mean, this is hard work.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that because of the attention economy, it's also created this almost necessity of, doing what you do, constantly trying to raise the bar technically, but have this sensationalism where you're, doing all this stuff whilst you're juggling chainsaws. And you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, to me, I'm like, nah, no thanks. But
Yeah.
and other people will say, well, why not? This person can juggle chainsaws and do all that stuff. And I'm like, who cares? I mean, well, all due respect to anyone that can do that. Okay, great. But the fact that it's now necessary because of this attention economy, and it's just, yeah, I mean, again, some people may say, oh, well, this is an old argument. I mean, we're so firmly ensconced in this now that why would you even bring it up? And I think that there's a reason to bring it up because people still are still talking about this. And even there, one might even see the occasional news article that talks about a deficit of attention span. And in fact,
Yeah.
only yesterday did I see something where they did an experiment in a school. I think it was in Florida, where they said no cell phones. You got to put your cell phones away. You can't bring this stuff into class. Anyhow, what happened? Apparently, there was less bullying. Attention went up. There was more
Yeah,
interaction between people.
sure.
So I think that it's not an old argument. It's an ongoing and relevant topic.
I think younger people today may not know of the existence of any other world, such as the world that you and I grew up in.
Exactly.
And that we kind of did things in a different way to the way that they're done now.
Yeah.
But I don't think young people know that. They think music is something done in a bedroom with a computer and one person on his own, and you sell it to a tech company or something.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really know how that works particularly, but I think a lot of people think like that. And the old idea of 4 or 5 people in an ensemble playing live is a rather strange idea. When young people used to come and hear Earthworks, and I'm sure bands that you've been in too, live and saw some small place like the Baked Potato, maybe in LA, or Ronnie Scott's here in the UK.
Mhm.
They'd always be, acoustic groups largely. They'd be astonished by the velocity and power of live close-up music. They've been familiarized with live distant music, over 20,000 people watching a TV screen that's slightly out of sync with the performers. The audio is not quite there. They kind of got used to stadium rock or Glastonbury here in the UK. But close up and intimate with any kind of music performance is a different thing. And it's a wonderful thing. Something less than 300, 400 seats, you lose it, but around 1,000 seats, you're going to lose it. But working that small level is really a pleasure. I've lived in that for the last 20 years, generally speaking, well, on and off. And I like that a lot. And I think young people are astonished by that, because they've no idea that kind of music, that small, intimate level, chamber level works, and works well.
It does, and you're moving air, and they're experiencing that. I remember playing at Ronnie's with the late great Jeff Beck, and we were playing quite loud in there, and talk about getting air moved and experiencing that in that place. That was a pretty prime example of that in a sense, maybe an extreme one. And for that matter, I mean, I personally like small theaters, because I can still get a grasp of the audience, but it's not too big that all that other stuff happens. And but anyway, to be fair, Bill, it's like, I'm not against, hey, having my laptop in my bedroom and putting stuff up. It's just the idea that there is a difference, and it's an adjunct. It's, if you want to do it that way, great. But when you don't know the difference, it's another ball game. I think you and I, like for myself, at the age that I'm at, I'm like, look, I lived certain things that you only know about through hearsay. And now the way information is being distorted, you may have heard about it completely differently than it really actually was.
Yeah.
So I almost feel a sense of responsibility to relay that to people, you know what I mean, correctly.
Well, particularly people younger than us.
Yes.
I think. So in a way, it's all intergenerational now.
Yeah.
So people like you and me, or me certainly, I'm not sure about you, have a substantial catalog of ancient creaking music, which in my case is on a YouTube channel. Some 150 odd videos up there now, and young people, I can try to connect them and say, look at this, isn't this weird? Through the descriptions on YouTube, I can bring people into why the musicians played music like that. And I'm, trying to steer it more towards, not so much our generation who already know what I'm talking about, but the younger generation for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So, I mean, we've actually kind of touched a bit on this oxymoron called the music business, and and the solitary musician. But it's interesting also because the drums, more people want to play drums than ever. I think it's a testimony to the power of the language of the drums, and people resonate with the human beat as well, so to speak, instead of just being corrected in some DAW, there is a human beat that people resonate with, just interacting with people. So it's interesting to note that people want to play. And
they love seeing musicians playing when they, on railway station concourses, when some guy gets up and played a piano, or, bucket drummers in New York City.
Yeah.
Guys with upturned buckets who are wailing on the buckets. People stand and stare. It's a kind of magic to most people.
It really is.
Sadly, they think you have to come from the Royal College of Music to be able to do that. That's not true. You don't have to do that. There are ways of acquiring the information necessary to make a huge amount of connection with a listener.
It's interesting to note that a couple of things when they witness that, and they see a kid playing on buckets, and the guy's wailing on them, and it's like, he hasn't had any formal training, but he figured it out. And in a way, and in a grand way, we teach ourselves. Teachers are guides, and we want validation, and we get that through our guides. And having the respect of our peers and this, that, and the other thing. And
Mm-hmm.
but it also sort of like it to me, it almost flies in the face of these how-to channels that just take little minutia of things and just
Yeah.
harp on it for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, this kid's just going, no, here's how you do it. And he's playing and he's wailing on it and ta-da, and it works. But it's interesting to note that there was a social experiment that was done several years ago that you may have heard about. It was a famous violinist, might have been Joshua Bell, who,
Yeah.
went busking, and had his same violin, playing the same way that he plays in concert halls.
Right.
And apparently the story goes that people walked right by him. Nothing. Just, so situationally, what does that
Hard, isn't it?
mean? What does that mean, when you've got people who are paying these high ticket prices to see him in concert halls, and they don't recognize what they're witnessing?
Correct.
You know,
It means they're not hearing the music. They may be
no,
listening to it. They're
no,
listening, but they're not hearing it.
they're not.
Well, but the other way around. They're hearing it, but they're not. Oh, well, I don't know. Listen or hearing. I can't remember which comes first quite. But one way or another, they're not paying attention to it. And the only reason they go in there and pay a concert ticket is economics and marketing.
Yeah,
So, it's a expensive night out. It's a brilliant musician. We're going to go and hear Joshua Bell.
exactly.
But at the bottom of the escalators in the subway, it's a different thing.
Yeah,
And
right. It's we wouldn't be seen like clapping in this place.
yeah,
It's weird. It's like it's a societal sort of hierarchical, yeah, class thing.
it's market driven.
Yeah, it's
And
bizarre.
we have to survive in that market. And
Yeah,
I suppose a good question is, how far do you have to adapt to the market in order to survive in it? I mean, is it possible anymore? And I'm not. I'm asking you. I'm throwing it out. To make works of art that are just from you, just from your soul, just something you need to make. And can you survive as an artist today by producing just that thing that's just from you, or do you have to adapt it and change it for the market?
You know what? I think that is how it's presented. Some people just put out that pure thing and it catches on. And I'm not sure if it catches on because at that given moment, enough people picked up on it to have it go viral. And it was,
Yeah.
it was something that filled a need in this void, where there were enough people in
Mm.
this sort of demographic that were aching for that picked up on it. You know what I
Who
mean?
knows?
Yeah, but that I think that's an anomaly. That's hypothetical situation is probably an anomaly, and I just think that whatever has the chance of surviving and being sort of recognized is all down to marketing. I mean, at this point, it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's all like a personality contest. Like, who do you like better? Like,
Mm.
I mean, in terms of, you've got people with all this ability and creativity, and it's like, which talk show host do you want to listen to? You know,
Mm.
how,
So
how
too much choice. It's a paradox of too much choice
that too. Yeah,
in,
there's
in
just
a
too
way.
much. Yeah, and I'm not advocating for limiting choice because I'm really big on freedom of speech and all of the things that we Americans enjoy constitutionally and in our Bill of Rights. I'm huge on that. So, just what does it mean to you to be a creative person, and do you think that the creative impulse needs to be coaxed, and you have to be in the mood to do it, or is it just come from just doing it?
Oh, just doing it. The quick,
Yep.
never mind coaxing and the rest of it, and having to be in the mood and the rest of it. There's plenty of old adages about music performance or an art works are 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. Yes,
Yep.
yes, you've got to get started, but once you get started, you've got to put a second foot in front of the first foot, and then take another step, and then another step, and still you don't even have the chorus, you don't have the hook line. You've got to work out the lyric. How does that fit with the rhythm of the chorus? Oh, it's terrible. Let's go back 5 paces. You know, that sheer bloody-minded labor, I think, comes in at the bottom of all artistic effort.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the lone genius paradigm, where somehow we're struck by lightning and you could just play the drums because you were touched by God at that moment, you know, because it's not really like that, I'm afraid, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you probably put in a couple of hours at that practice pad, Mr. Kolayuda.
Yeah, a few.
I would think you did.
Mm-hmm.
As an artist or a performer, I think, what am I doing? I think I'm looking for meaning. And to give meaning and purpose, I think, and meaning is produced for me when I register certain experiences as connected to other experiences. So over time, my musical activity generates lived experience,
Mm-hmm.
which, when I interpret it, gives me meaning.
Okay.
Meaning, and the reason I want meaning is because then that forms a basis for possible change in my practice, and therefore in myself. So in a way, I'm holding up music as a bit of a mirror. You know, you can do that. Oh, that's what you look like. Oh God, that's awful. You know, why didn't you change that? Oh, I see. You know, you can use music, and I think any artist can do the same thing, as a mirror to reflect back your personality, and through that to change, should you wish to, and I do wish to.
Okay. Yeah, that's wow. Beautifully said.
Well, there's yeah, sorry, there's a lot of meaning in all that. The word meaning comes up a bit too much, but I need that from music.
No,
So I'll
doesn't.
tell you a really scary story. Was a very quick story. I was playing a studio date in horrible circumstances. Spotlight on the drum kit, no other musicians, except the musicians are up in a control booth up there, and they're kind of a bus line of musicians waiting to come in and play on this track that I'm supposed to be performing on. The track is a guide piano, no other information given. I tried to play a fairly basic 4/4 beat, and I'm stopped within seconds. You know, no, that's not going to be it. Try again. But try again what? I couldn't abstract from this situation. I could abstract no musical meaning whatsoever. The enterprise seemed stillborn to me from the word go. The piano track was just awful. It made no sense to me. Nobody told me what the song was about. I'm supposed to play this. It's absolutely ludicrous. And the more I tried, the worse it got. And it was my mind telling me that I was not in the presence of any music here. I could make no music here, which I think is a fair enough assessment of the situation. So that's why I need meaning in music. That's why I'm not a very good studio musician.
Yeah,
that's why I need to know that the rest of the guys in the band and we're kind of serious about this. We want to get somewhere with this.
This is really okay. Wow. That's so rich and so loaded. That's a great example illustrating what you mean in terms of having to have meaning, because you're given a snippet like that. And, you know, I mean, I could run with this one too. You know, I've been in the same situation and I couldn't think of what to play. And oftentimes, you know, as studio musicians, we're trained to sort of try to get the right thing as quick as possible, meaning that, you know, after you lock into something, it's harder to empty your mind to think of something completely different, especially if the artist and or producer says, no, that's not right. So, you know, so there's a bit of a double whammy there. But at the same time, you know, the real reason is kind of like, you know, that one bare piano part might mean something to the person that composed it because they have a different picture in their head, and they were able to somehow contextualize it, and you can't. How could you possibly contextualize that? It's not fair for you to be expected to do that, in my opinion.
Right.
And yeah, so I get that completely. You know, it just reminds me of a time when I went in and I just thought, oh, I've got this big vocabulary and all these chops, and I couldn't
Mhm.
figure out what to play on a song. And the artist said, well, let me try. And the artist couldn't play drums, but what they played was right. And it was an eye opener for me. I thought, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Uh-huh.
How good are you
Well,
now? But on the other hand, it's not just how good are you, but like, why would I have thought of that? Really? Like, look at
yeah,
it
yeah.
from another perspective. Why would I have thought of that? Because nothing gave that clue to me.
Mm.
You're talking about meaning, and the whole meaning thing is, in the sense of you talking of your life experiences to give music meaning.
Yeah,
That's a whole other thing.
yeah,
That's like the big picture, the big kahuna. And it just reminds me of, like you said, meaning and purpose. It reminds me of Viktor Frankl,
yeah.
Man's Search for Meaning. And I'm not going to talk about my show here, but I did do an episode that, was one of my monologues that I called The Will to Purpose. That is another one.
Okay, right.
So both of those things right there. So
Mhm.
I get it, and we need to have some kind of context. It's it's crazy. So
Yeah.
yeah, well said. I mean, I totally get that. Um, you
But
know,
we're all in music for different reasons, and I defend to the death,
yeah,
the right of anybody to be in music for any reason he or she wants, and the
amen.
listener, any listener, to get out of music anything that he or she feels they can get out of music. That's fine. It may not be what I, as the artist, intended, but I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned. I think with myself before the listener. I believe in the sense. Let me think that through. In that, if I'm on a roll and I know what I'm doing and the meaning is coming and there is purpose in this, and I'm convinced, I can convince you. If I'm not convinced, there's no way in hell I'm going to convince you at all. So with the piano part story, I'm the wrong drummer that day. I don't mind saying I asked the wrong guy, get someone else, But on my own albums, I've done my best to create a context in which people can shine and which it kind of smells good. And at that point, I think I'll go out to fight for that. I'll go out to persuade you, Brand Bruford, that it's good, that it's all right, and I'm happy
Yeah,
to be.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, Bill, because on the other hand, I've been in situations where there has been plenty of context where playing with pretty much a finished track, but the producer would have, a billion drummers go in there playing the same thing,
Yeah,
as if they're waiting for this magic kind of thing. And then it ends up that one guy plays the hi-hat, and it's like, at that point, I have to sort of start questioning things and go, this is 99% subjectivity right now. It's,
yeah, yeah.
it's not lack of context. It's not a lack
It's
of being able to abstract things from. Yeah.
it's also 99% spending a huge budget.
Oh, then there's that. Then there's that. Yeah.
let's not go down that road.
No, not at all. But that was an amazing thing that you said that really encompassed the whole thing of creativity, because and putting one foot in front of the other and not waiting for this magic moment to arrive. Because when you think of it, some people, I think, when they talk about, oh, I'm feeling creative, it's like some
Yeah.
kind of magic cloud that just kind of descended on them. But
Mhm.
what does it mean to create? It just means to make something out of nothing, pretty much. You're just creating. It doesn't mean that
Yes, yeah.
it's a magic spell that, yeah. Are you waiting for an eclipse in order for, yeah, all of that? And I think
Indeed.
you spelled that out well. Do you have a problem with, I mean, what is your take on art converging with entertainment? Why do I ask this? Because some people think that the twain should never meet, believe it or not.
Well, I think they might be a bit too late on that, because art can be hugely entertaining
Yeah.
in and of itself. Um, I'd like to feel, even when I'm so busy with my personal inner thoughts about, is this being of any meaning to me?
Mm-hmm.
I'd also like to feel that what I'm doing in front of an audience is engaging them like crazy, and that they are being entertained. Entertainment is seen as a dirty word among artists. It's seen as a trivialization of something. I'm not sure I'm on that side quite. I'm entertained by all kinds of things. Usually not what the entertainer is expecting me to be entertained by. You know, he
Yeah.
may be juggling chainsaws, but I'm more interested in his red pants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. You know, that miscommunication happens all the time in entertainment, I think.
Yeah.
The art side of it, I think, is more personal for me. I feel I'm in the presence of art and artists on some occasions in music, and I've been in musical situations which I think are just wonderful, but whether it fits the current view of what art is in the 21st century, I don't know.
Hmm.
So I take a personal view rather than, I wouldn't want to put out an album and say this is my art. I'm not sure I want to do that. It's
Yeah.
part of my
Yeah.
art, part of my entertainment.
I'm sorry to get that last part.
It's partly my art and partly entertainment
I
for
got
me
you.
and for the listener.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good point. Good point. I mean, I think that some people, I mean, even myself, I think that sometimes rather than me thinking that I'm entertaining people, unless there's a comedic element to it, um, would rather sort of say, here's the music. What are you abstracting from it? And I'm engaging you, and I'm gently coaxing you and engaging you, not challenging you or not to try to sort of, you know, get you flummoxed over it, but
Right.
but engaging you, and that's the sort of art part. And rather than me saying, hey, look at me twirl my sticks, I'm going to entertain you now,
Mm-hmm.
if I had the choice to leave any entertainment out of it, I'd be happy with it. I'd be happy
Yeah.
with, the idea of me hearing a record 8 times and listening to it over and over, because that's just how we did things 40 years ago, gave me the chance to hear something that I didn't hear the first time, or maybe even the sixth or seventh time. So I was sort of engaging myself in it, not being entertained where I wanted to applaud them or clap or laugh,
Mm.
but because of that reason. So, that's part of the reason why I asked that question, Bill. Not and it's not a trick question. It's an interesting perspective, because there are entertainers or people who are entertaining that their entertainment contains art or can be said to be
I think
artistic.
so. I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah,
You know, this is could go on. There's a long discussion which could go into
yeah,
very, very difficult areas about high art and low art. And
right.
entertainment is associated with low art. It's partly contextualized as a dirty word by high art, which insists, of course, that high art came from you because you're a genius, and then back to Joshua Bell and all that. So, but again, maybe we shouldn't go down that road. It's a long road
It's
as
a
to why
yeah,
entertainment is a dirty word.
yeah, yeah. Maybe I should have left that one alone. Yeah, yeah, but oh wow. So oh, okay. How does you decided? Okay, let me just add one thing to this
Mm-hmm.
before I ask the next question. So there was a band in the '80s who actually said, something like, I think that live performance is self-indulgent and would rather
Oh, the
be,
famous self-indulgent, yes.
yeah, and that we would rather be recording. And I thought about it and I went, okay, yeah, maybe yes and maybe no. But part of the reason why I wanted to be a studio musician was I was more interested in being heard than seen. So music is an
Mm-hmm.
oral, immersive thing that deals with sound frequencies and bathes you in
Ah,
sound. And you know,
yes. Whereas the minute you get on a stage, you're in a power space,
yeah,
especially if you're in the powerful center of the stage where the
yeah,
singer stands.
yeah,
All eyes are on him or her,
yeah,
and you're in entertainment whether you like it or not at that point.
whether you
Just
like it or not.
just picking up the drumsticks, and I'm comfortable with being on a stage. I don't mind that. I just feel I'm me. people stare at me, they don't know me at all. And I just come to do what I do, and I would do it the same if I were in, you know, playing in a small room with four other fabulous musicians. You know, I would do it exactly the same, whether it's 30 people or 300. I'd hardly change it at all.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so retirement. Why retirement?
That's a
Go ahead,
terrible
to that.
It's such a terrible word. I don't really
I know.
get it. You know, I tried being retired for a bit, but it's a difficult word. So I did retire at 60, at the age of 60, but I think it was kind of a burnout, really. I mean, the sweat and hassle of keeping a band together and doing one-nighters in Madrid from London. I mean, that's a 48-hour round trip to play for 2 hours. You know what I mean? It's not really working. Transport's getting slower. Transport's getting less reliable around Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Brexit, there's a million reasons why the stress factor is stratospheric.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping a band in shape and having them when you want them, and providing tours was very hard work. And I think I kind of just said, I'd rather do something else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay. You're allowed to do that. Some people call that retirement. I went to university, and I got a doctorate in musicology and wrote a book. And that was terrific. And I've been an academic author now for some 6, 7 years, maybe, and been gone 13 years. But you know what? These days, as I walk past the drum kit every day to get to my desk, wow, it looks good. and you know, there's something about, practicing a musical instrument and the sense of trying to do today something you were unable to do yesterday is something deep in my soul about that. And you know, there's many classical musicians also who are retired in the early 70s, who's still in good shape, but practice every day because it's been part of their lifestyle. It's what they've done their entire lives. So why would they stop it? And they enjoy practicing, and they feel somehow they're staying on top of the instrument. They may or may not be, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. So I'm sort of retired, but I keep a keen eye, as you can probably tell, on the business of art, the business of music, the industry of music, what young people are doing, the death of the artist, all sorts of tangential stuff. And I suppose the only way I communicate any of this to the public is through your offices of your good self, and other podcasts and so forth, and or YouTube, and a YouTube channel. So that's probably the way. I don't really want to teach drum lessons. There's plenty of guys doing paradiddles. I don't want to do that. But I think, you know, speaking on this level with somebody like you is attractive, and I feel I can get a point across. It's nice. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. You know, the fastest paradiddle in the world without meaning is the most meaningless thing you can think of.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And you know, and you know, to be fair though, it's like, I get it. You know, people want to improve, and there's a sense of accomplishment, and okay, that's all well and good. But you know, now it's like, okay, you're playing for yourself, and we really, I think, have to please ourselves initially anyway. So you know, and we do it because we love it. I mean, I myself have been semi-retired, especially after COVID, that whole thing. But I mean, I still do things, and it's just at a different pace now. But there are other reasons why I've been in you know, sort of a little quiet, that I'll get into, you know, just you and I talking. But
Sure.
yeah, but you know, I get it, and I just think that it's interesting because, you know, you feel like playing, you'll play, and you'll just sort of remember why it is that you're doing this, and the joy that you're getting in the process of just waking up and saying, hey, I have something to look forward to today. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's of course, playing any kind of musical instrument to almost any standard is enormously good for you psychologically.
Yeah, and it does great things for your brain too. It's been, you know, sort of
And
Revealed.
I'm 108 now, so my brain needs a little extra work.
No, I don't think so, Bill. Well, yeah. So, you know what? I'm gonna ask something that may seem trite.
No, go
Probably
for it.
like everything else I've asked. Um, but what would Bill, let's say 40 years ago, think or do if he had a glimpse or was transported into today, into the future back then? If you were granted that transport, would that Bill, would he change course? Would he fire warning flares? Would he try to set up preventative measures for the great music giveaway? What would Bill think or Bill do, and how would it affect you? You get the gist of my
I
question.
I think I do. If I was 19 and surveying today's music business,
Yeah. And you were transported into today, like the entire
yes,
societal situation today, as well as the music business. Yeah.
uh, it would be rough work, and I don't think I'd be a musician because I came to music through playing drums with other people. And if I wouldn't or was unable to make that happen age 19 in today's modern world, if I'd been transported forward, um, I think I probably would have opted for something that produced an income, because I believe I feel terribly. I don't feel sorry for, that's patronizing. I don't feel sorry for. I mean, I feel for young people who want to play musical instruments. It's not easy to earn a crust here, uh,
No.
as we talked about a little bit earlier on. So I think probably I wouldn't have been a musician. I think when we started in post Beatles, it was a very, very wonderful ecology that we were getting stuck into. Partly because of the Beatles' success, Capitol Records was awash with money, and EMI Records just threw money at strange things. And in England, a whole genre called progressive rock developed because there was money around to develop it,
Hmm.
which was great. And that's pretty much the exact opposite of now. So I would have found it hard to get started.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? I think I'm kind of with you on that. I probably would have rethought things and gone, yeah, not a good idea. And I hate to say
Because,
it because
yeah,
I've actually spoken to people in universities and try to give them hope and
yeah,
and I wonder about universities telling people, oh yeah, no, you can do this, and here we'll teach you the business of music. I'm thinking, what are you teaching them? Maybe I should take that course and learn something,
yeah,
because I'm
yeah.
clueless and I've been in the business my entire life. And so what am I missing here? And I see what's going
Yeah,
on.
sure,
You know what
sure.
I mean? I see it. I could see everything that's going on. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, but yeah. So okay.
Hey, I've got a question. I've got a question for you, because as I was sitting waiting, I thought for us to get online together. I thought this is funny, and I just noticed a line in this book I was reading about what is success in the arts need? What does success in the arts need? And the author gives 5 things in descending order, 5 items, and I'm going to ask you if there's a 6th or a 7th. First item is raw talent. Second is hard work. Third is privilege. The fourth is luck, or good luck. And the fifth and final is connections.
Okay, so I would say luck is when preparedness means opportunity, as the old cliche says. But
Yeah, yeah,
then I think that the other one that I would add would be, you really have to want it with one pointed focus, like a really
yeah,
eternal burning desire. If you don't have that fuel,
yeah.
and you're
I think that's really good. I think that's a bad omission in that list.
yeah,
I agree. You've got to want it.
you do. Really,
Yeah.
like, where you don't really care if there's a plan B.
Mm,
It doesn't even enter your
yeah.
thought. So it has to be that sort of, I'm jumping off the cliff now, and that's that. Um,
It does. It does, absolutely. And if there's an old line about if you can sleep at night, you shouldn't really be doing this.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well said. And, I remember talking to the late, great Chick Corea about this, and he said that, being in the right place at the right time is a very substantial thing. So
that would come under luck.
Okay, there you
But
go.
also, I will also just add to that. This might even be the final thing. Is I would also say knowing that you're in the right place at the right time.
Excellent.
Knowing you're there.
That's right. Knowing it and seizing the opportunity, but being in the right place at the right time, falling under luck is only part of it, because you got to be ready when you are in that bright place. You got
to be ready.
Yeah, when I came to LA, call me naive and call me stupid or whatever, but I somehow felt, and I believed in myself to think, I can back this. I have what it takes to back it up. I didn't come here for nothing. I can do this.
Yeah.
And it was just a realization of just reality, not, arrogance or any of that.
Oh, no, absolutely.
It was just, you got to know that. You have to know that yourself enough to go, yeah, I can do this, or, oh boy, am I in over my head. I should have really had that plan B, that kind of thing. But thank you for bringing that up and asking that question, Bill. And yeah, really, so I'm going to ask you one final question.
Oh my God.
So is there anything on the horizon for Bill Bruford that, you're looking forward to or have maybe planned,
Oh, no, I'm not planning, running bands and making records and stuff. I'm afraid I'm done with that.
Got it.
I hang out with some jazz friends. We play locally, just kind of in a local room and stuff. But anything else I'm planning? No. Reissuing records, of course, that happens all the time, one way or another. Demand doesn't really diminish, funnily enough. It's gone away from CDs to physical, and from physical to streaming. Demand is still there for the old records that I was associated with. Mm-hmm. And every now and then I have to listen to them, and they're not too bad either.
Yeah.
They're not too bad. There was a kid in there who had something to say,
Oh, you better believe it. Oh, yeah.
That was okay. So I'm a happy guy, but no, I'm not going to go to the front line of trying to get a one-nighter in Madrid.
I get that. I have to just say also that I loved when I actually saw, Earthworks, the way that you had your setup, and it was all flat and sort of went out,
Oh yeah.
Left and right. I thought that is great. He actually, had the sort of desire and said, I'm just going to do this. This is how I want to set the drums up. Why do I have to set them up like they're always set up? That works for me. And, it might make me think different. And ergonomically, and ergonomically makes sense. Like, I thought that was really, it's actually got me thinking about doing that now, because ergonomically it just looked great. I have to say that. So,
where I got it from? I was at a PAS convention listening to a seminar with the timpanist from the Concertgebouw Orchestra of Amsterdam.
Oh, fantastic.
And the guy had 5 drums in front of him, 2 toms, 2 higher toms, and a snare drum, as I did. And he just, the way he swiveled at the hips was so graceful on a stool that allowed him to swivel. And it was just so graceful, and he was so easy going around. I thought, oh, I like that,
Yeah.
I'll borrow some of that.
That's great. Yeah. Well, wow. I was wondering what made you think of that. That was really brilliant. So, well, Bill, I have to thank you profusely from the bottom of my heart for doing this. This has been an immensely satisfying conversation for me. And
for me too, Vinny. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much. And so thank you, Bill Bruford, the great Bill Bruford. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode of Breakfast with Vinny.